on the journalist Bob Woodward. Now, I read recently, Len, that Bob Woodward is now going to write the definitive insider account on Donald Trump, and that the Trump White House is giving Bob Woodward access. Not a very good idea based on what I know, but let's see what you think, Len.
Bad idea. And starting about 3 weeks ago, we started to see a narrative build in the media. They were using Watergate as the model for Trump. And this was very, very dangerous. It went from CNN plucking Bernstein, Carl Bernstein, Woodward's cohort out and putting him on. And there were many, many allusions to things in Watergate, which included leaks, by the way, Roger, as you well know. And last night it was drips, drips, drips. And Hillary Rosen, this is Clinton's person, brought up that hero that they're waiting for named John Dean. So we're beginning to see the makings of a narrative that's very dangerous, because we can't keep forcing presidents out of office. You just can't do it. We have protections in the Constitution that if you've got something against President Trump, file the charges with the House Judiciary Committee. Let's have a hearing, a vote, and a trial in the Senate. That's the way you do it. But that's not what's building out there. And that's why we see Woodward on CNN and on Fox. And it would be sad if President Trump gave him any access. I did a talk in New Orleans where you and I met, and I produced the big lie that you have on page 520 of Nixon's Secrets. I asked Woodward what he did in the Navy. Did he brief Alexander Haig? Did he brief anyone? And you can hear in this talk and on my website, you can hear Woodward say, no, never briefed anyone. I defy you to find anyone. And I did. I found the Secretary of Defense, Melvin Laird, who confirmed that Woodward was briefing Al Haig in 1969 and 70. And then Admiral Thomas Moore, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who was Woodward's boss, also confirmed it. So if you have someone lying about who they are, they're fake. He's a fake reporter producing fake news. And in fact, he produced a fake history. I think generations who weren't around for Watergate, you got to push back. Silent coup is a roadmap. Get silent coup, read it, and look for the signals and push back. Don't let them do it again. This is a very, very dangerous game they're playing. And I think it's very important. I saw on MSNBC a fellow named Larry O'Donnell or whatever had a whole show with E.J. Dionne trying to figure out how they could remove Trump with the 25th Amendment. This is serious business, and you're spreading serious words. So learn about Watergate, look for the symptoms, and push back. Because if Donald Trump is forced from office any other way but constitutionally, this country is headed toward a civil war. It isn't necessary. And the media should know better.
Well, Len, I must tell you, I'm very impressed with Larry O'Donnell, because I don't know how anybody conducts an entire television show while they're that drunk, in all honesty. He is among the most dishonest journalists you can see on television. You also kind of set me up to announce my next book, which will be available in May. It's called The Lies of Bob Woodward. And you'll be able to get it at Amazon. It's a shorter book, but I think more and more people, building on the incredible research that you have done, building on the oral histories that are now at Texas A&M, in which both John Dean and Bob Woodward lie repeatedly. And this is important historical information that people need to know. Now, you have raised the question of John Wesley Dean. All one would need to do is to look at his sworn testimony to the Watergate special prosecutors in depositions and his sworn testimony before the Senate Watergate Committee to find multiple discrepancies and lies, better known as perjury. Mr. Dean is the man who planned, pushed, and then covered up the Watergate break-in and lied repeatedly to President Nixon about exactly what had transpired. In his most recent book, as you know, which he claims is the definitive book on Watergate, in which he reproduces many of the transcripts of taped conversations in the Oval Office, he seems, for some odd reason, to have excluded his conversations with the president on March 16th, 17th, and 22nd. The reason for that, I believe, of course, is that it will show him coaching his client on how to perjure himself and misleading the president about the facts of Watergate. So letting a quisling, letting a rat this close to the Trump White House is indeed incredibly dangerous. I would suggest to the president that it is not wise to allow him any kind of access, because the book he writes, as the book he wrote about former CIA Director Bill Casey, will be rife with falsehoods, lies, and fake news. What is your assessment here, Len, on John Dean? Because it appears to me that he is moving far left as a protection against any re-examination of his true role in Watergate. And by the way, Mr. Dean, if you're listening, please sue me, because you like to sue people who can't fight back. But I will fight back, and I will prove in any court of law you want to choose that you, sir, are a liar, and that you, sir, are the perp in Watergate. Len?
Well, they brought the specter of John Dean. As you know, John Dean is more Democrat today than he is anything else, maybe even further left than that. But John Dean has been reduced in history because he was used by Alexander Haig, and he was used by Bob Woodward and Fred Buzhardt as they moved to force Nixon out. But he was the rat that testified and perjured himself. So he's important, but he's not as important as Alexander Haig. He's not, who became, by the way, president for 15 months. There's a great book called Nixon's Gamble that will take you in, and you'll see in great depth exactly the role that Nixon made a bad call. This is a situational conspiracy. When I say that, it isn't a true conspiracy, because Nixon appoints General Haig to be his chief of staff. He didn't know that General Haig was going to drive him from office. But General Haig, working with Bob Woodward, and for example, Bob Woodward went to the Senate Watergate Committee twice. Once in May of '73, and he said, call Alex Butterfield. And he went a second time in July and said, call Alex Butterfield. That's how the taping system got released. His fingerprints are all over this Watergate, the real Watergate story. In November of that year, he published a story that said the Deep Throat said there are deliberate erasures on the tape. And then shortly thereafter, there was an 18.5-minute gap, which I believe was put there by Alexander Haig and Fred Buzhardt. So Silent Coup is the other version, but it's the real version. And younger people, younger than me at 79, but certainly who missed the thrill of Watergate, get a copy of Silent Coup, read it as though it were a playbook for what the media is going to do right now. Who is going to be the next John Dean? Who is going to be the next Bob Woodward? And that's what we're going to find in this. And this is go to my Watergate.com site, and you can hear it all for yourself.
Well, there's another lesson here, it seems to me, Len, and that is a lesson that's important for President Trump. One of Nixon's greatest mistakes was hiring the Alexander Butterfields of this world, hiring a group of young men, largely, who were not loyal to him or his vision. Thanks for joining